All right, Isaac, thank you. It's Friday, and you know what that means. It's time for our Top 4 in 4 countdown, where I review the top 4 stories of the week in 4 minutes. Let's begin. Headline number 4, family members of a Minnesota man fatally shot by a police officer in a traffic stop in July says they are pleased that the officer has been charged with manslaughter. Valerie Castile is the mother of Philando Castile, a black man who was 32 when he was shot after his car was pulled over in a St. Paul suburb. Castile says the charge against Officer Geronimo Yanez is the strongest the family could have hoped for under Minnesota law. A prosecutor said Wednesday in filing the charge that Yanez was not justified in using deadly force. Glenda Hatchett, an attorney for the family, called the charge, quote, an important signal to this nation. Now to another trial we've been following out of South Carolina. Michael Slager, the former South Carolina patrolman charged with murder in the shooting death of an unarmed black motorist after an April 2015 traffic stop. The shooting of 50-year-old Scott was captured on cell phone video that stunned the nation. The defense has opened its case and contends the two men struggled and Scott got a hold of the officer's taser before that shooting. Now for headline number 3, U.S. officials are canceling 15 oil and gas leases in an area bordering Glacier National Park that's considered sacred to the Blackfoot tribes of the U.S. and in Canada. The cancellation was aimed at preserving the 130,000-acre area, the site of the creation story for members of Montana's Blackfeet Nation and the Blackfoot tribes of Canada. Interior officials have said the leases were issued more than 3 decades ago without proper consultations with tribal leaders. The move comes amid sometimes violent protests over an oil pipeline being built near the Standing Rock Sox Reservation in North Dakota. The Obama administration has been criticized by some American Indians for its handling of that dispute, and federal officials have sought to reduce tensions by saying they would consider rerouting the pipeline. Blackfeet Tribal Chairman Harry Barnes said the pipeline dispute has reinforced the need for closer cooperation between the U.S. and Native tribes. Now for headline number 2, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has awarded key roles in his incoming team to a top Republican Party official and a right-wing media chief. Reince Priebus, chairman of the Republican National Committee, or the RNC, will be his chief of staff. In this role, he will set the tone for the new White House and act as a liaison between Congress and the government. Stephen Bannon from the Breitbart News Network will serve as Mr. Trump's chief strategist. Breitbart is linked to the alternative right movement, or the alt-right, which tends to reject both left-wing ideology and mainstream conservatism. The movement often emphasizes free speech and the right to offend. Opponents call it racist, anti-Semitic, and sexist. Mr. Bannon stepped aside as executive chairman of Breitbart, a combative conservative site with an anti-establishment agenda, to act as Mr. Trump's campaign chief. Meanwhile, in the president-elect's first interview with CBS News, Mr. Trump said he would deport or jail up to 3 million illegal immigrants with criminal links. Future Supreme Court nominees would be pro-life, meaning they oppose abortion and defend the constitutional right to bear arms. Mr. Trump will not seek to overturn the legislation of same-sex marriage. He will forego the president's $400,000 a year salary, taking $1 a year instead. Now for headline number 1, people who got their election news on Facebook might have been looking at more fake stories than real ones. Get this, BuzzFeed News concluded that the fake clickbait headlines hooked users more often than real headlines after analyzing the last 3 months of campaign coverage. The report compared fake news from hoax sites and hyper-partisan blogs to legitimate new articles from 19 major news outlets, including the New York Times, Fox News, and even CBS News. You might have seen an article with the headline blaring, "Pope Francis shocks world, endorses Donald Trump for president" on your Facebook feed in September. Well, you might have even shared that article or just clicked like or wow or even made a comment. The problem is the story was false, joining the ranks of other fake, highly shared or liked articles with headlines like "WikiLeaks confirms Hillary sold weapons to ISIS." BuzzFeed News said during the last 3 months of the presidential campaign, of the top 20 fake election-related articles on Facebook, all but 3 were all anti-Clinton or pro-Trump, and Facebook users engaged with them using a share, a like, or a comment more than 8.7 million times. According to Pew Research, 66% of Facebook users said they get news from the site, but at a tech conference last Thursday, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg dismissed the issue completely. Still, platforms like Facebook and Google could face legal hurdles in addressing that problem. All right, well, be sure to join me next week. I'll be counting down a new list of interesting stories and headlines that everyone is talking about. These include politics, breaking news, and that story that you might have missed during the week. And that's The Real Deal. We'll be right back after this.